special day. We're flying with my father-in-law, who actually inspired me to fly, and I ended up getting my license because he pushed me to do it, and it was one of those things where you just don't know what you don't know, and it just kind of seems unobtainable, and so just started, actually my first flight in a small airplane was this airplane when Leanne and I were dating, and it was like day 4 of dating. We came up here to Knoxville, and you took us out on the airplane, and that was like one of the coolest experiences that I've had. So it kind of stemmed from that moment, and just to see Leanne so comfortable in an airplane, and just kind of the community that comes with it was pretty cool to see. So we're just continuing the legacy of this, and fortunately, I'm glad that I got my license and still love it. I think it's a passion that I'll carry with me my whole life, and hopefully pass on to Charles. But I gotta say thank you for just opening that door for me, because a lot of people you see learning to fly are like it's their retirement dream or something, and that's when they end up picking it up, because you just don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, I wanted to hear again your story and how you started to fly, or you got inspired, or when that door opened for you.
Let's see. I always was interested in flying from the perspective of watching Discovery Channel and television shows, but didn't ever think I would have the time or the opportunity or the money. But then one day we were watching the movie 2012 back in, I think it was around 2009 or so, but the movie was called 2012. It was a disaster movie. And there's a scene where a guy is able to fly the family to safety.
Yeah.
And Leticia said, "You've got to get your license in case that happens." And I'm like, "Well, okay, I'll look into it." And it so happens that sometime around there was the mortgage crisis in the United States. You can look that up. And Capital One Healthcare Finance laid off its entire sales force. They shut down the whole division, so we got laid off. But we all got educational benefits. Like I got the opportunity to use $5,000 for retraining. So I had the idea, shoot, I'm going to go to the flight school and see if I can get them to give me a receipt for $5,000 worth of professional flight training or something like that. I'm going to submit it, I'm going to fax it to that number and see what happens. So I did that. They said, sure, we'll give you a receipt. And I said, well, you call me if you get a check. I got a call a couple weeks later. You actually have a $5,000 credit here. We got a check. So when do you want to start? So I had to start, and it was terrifying. I didn't really want to do it at that point, but I had to. And so I took 2 lessons a week for 4 months and got my license. Was scared every lesson. I'm less scared now. After how many years is that? 14, 15 years. But I never lost respect for the airplane. I always try to be very cautious. And I don't ever do any of those fun moves that I used to see on the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, you're a straight and level flyer.
Exactly.
Yes, especially Leticia. One of the times we flew, I'm like, let's do the whoop-de-doos or some steep turns, and she was not allowing it.
I'm like, whoop-de, no.
So it ended up costing you $5,000 total for flying?
So that was enough to get started. That was enough to remove any excuse, the cost barrier. I think it ended up costing me about $8,500 in total. And then I rented for a little while, and I hated renting. For one thing, in Florida where I got my license, if you're a pilot, you want to fly to the Bahamas. Well, the airplane rental required you have an instrument rating. I didn't have an instrument rating at that time. I still don't. Meaning you can fly in instrument conditions through the clouds, rain, things like that. We need to be able to see to fly with a VFR, Visual Flight Rules license. Anyway, so I rented planes to fly around locally. Couldn't go to the Bahamas. Also, when you get in a plane that's a rental, everything's all different. The radio buttons are changed. You know, you gotta fiddle with it. And I don't like that. So I bought a used airplane, and immediately we were able to fly to the Bahamas and fly wherever we wanted. No one touches my stuff, and so we've been enjoying that since I guess around 2010 or so, maybe 11. Can't remember the exact year we bought this. This is the 1966 Cessna 172G with a Continental 0300D 6-cylinder 145 horsepower motor.
What's the story like? What the buying process of this airplane? What that look like for you?
You know, even back then we had internet, and so I was just looking on Trade a Plane and Controller.com, things like that, and I found this one up in the Minneapolis area, and I flew up there and took it for a test ride and financed it. You could finance an airplane for like 20 years. It was, at that time, it was only $33,000. It might sell today for $70,000, but still less than the cost of one of those new fancy trucks.
Yeah.
And I actually got the owner's son to fly it down to Knoxville, and I paid for him to fly back home on a commercial flight, and then I flew up from Florida to Knoxville, met him, and picked up the plane, and Leticia and I flew it home.
Oh, that's pretty neat. It always cracked me up when you say you had to wear, like, you didn't want to rent an airplane because you were tired of people messing with your stuff, but when you got your own airplane, you even wore the same exact shoes.
Yeah. Well, no, during training, I was always scared to change shoes because I was afraid changing anything might deteriorate my ability to fly. Maybe the only reason I could fly is because of my sandals. So I tend to always wear the same kind of shoes, but I have discovered I can change shoes without much adverse effect.
That's hilarious.
I'm gonna do a little whoop-de-doo here. We'll fly over through the cut there in the mountains. This maneuver is about as close as I'll ever come to terrain.
Threading the needle here. Pretty incredible to look over and see terrain right next to you.
My GPS doesn't like it.
They're giving you that terrain, pull up.
Right.
So how many times do you think you flew to Bahamas with Leanne in the back of the airplane?
Maybe 5 times, and something like that. Maybe total times flying when I was down there to the Bahamas, maybe 10.
Okay. It's pretty funny to me how often that comes up in conversation. Leanne talking about her childhood and the $100 burger, flying to the Bahamas, and just how cool of an experience it was for her to grow up doing that. So you got your airplane. It was $8,000, which to get your pilot's license. For me, it ended up being $13,000, maybe closer to $14,000. I stopped keeping track of it towards the end, but it was probably like $13,700 for me to get my airplane license.
Yeah.
And now I'm just trying to think how I can make it feasible, or just to make the next step to get my instrument rating, because I think that is a really cool ability you can have, because you can fly out of foggy weather and up into the clear skies. So it just keeps you from being grounded.
Right, yeah, I would definitely recommend that. I was already old when I got my license. I was in my early 40s. You're young, so you have a lot more years ahead of you to fly, and so having an instrument rating really opened up the world to you, because there's been many flights that I've canceled because it doesn't take much in the way of potential risk for me to cancel a flight, because I'm not delivering organs. You know, I'm flying for recreation.
Yeah.
If I had an instrument rating though, there's times like you mentioned, you might have fog and have to cancel it, but if you could take off through the fog legally and it's clear along the way and clear to your destination, you know, that's a great option. Or being able to just be a better pilot because of all those additional hours of training that you'll receive. It's going to be good for everybody.
Did you and your friend Samir start pilot training at about the same time?
No, he was my inspiration.
Okay, that's so cool how it cascades down like that.
Yeah, I took my boat to the boat mechanic, a shop that was owned by a Venezuelan guy. No, actually, the Spanish guy was, he was from Spain, and his wife was Venezuelan. And I went there, and Gus Boats, Gus wasn't there that day. There was this other guy, his name was Samir, and he was Venezuelan, and he was Gus's brother-in-law. Gus's wife, who was Venezuela, her brother was there filling in for Gus while Gus was having some medical treatment. And we got to talking about boating and stuff, and he said, if you like boating, you should try flying. I'm a pilot. I'm like, oh, really? And yeah, and he just started talking to me, and he gave me a ride in his airplane, and I said, and it was during the same time that the whole thing happened with Capital One and the movie 2012. It all conspired to get me in the air. And so I started lessons, and I would text Samir giving him updates and stuff, and he thought it was creepy at first. He was afraid maybe I was gay or something, because I would really keep him up. I may have overestimated his curiosity, but we ended up being friends, and we flew a lot all over the place together.
What airplane was he flying at that time?
He had a Piper Arrow with retractable landing gear, constant speed propeller. You know, it was complex, faster. He was instrument rated, very, very good pilot, more hours than me.
Downtown traffic, helicopter descending about 2 miles southeast of the field at 1,500 southeast.
Pigeon Forge down there.
Oh my, it's such a short flight from you.
Yeah.
Do they have an airport over there?
Yeah, the Sevierville Airport's right over there. Gatlinburg, Sevierville, they call it. You see in the chart here? Right here.
Okay, yeah, so almost straight ahead right over there. All the little cabins in Gatlinburg.
Uh-huh. How's our fuel level looking?
Fuel level
4 miles southeast of the field.
Looks a little bit lower on the right.
Okay, good. So we're consuming here, so that's good.
Yep.
I'm just trying to get this down more equal, then I go back to both.
Level.
It's fun being a passenger occasionally in an airplane, even when you're a pilot, to be able to just finally relax and appreciate the view.
If you did start flying, to anybody who's watching this, it is definitely an active sport. You have to constantly be maintaining and adjusting things, and you can get a really nice thing after flying a little bit would be autopilot. That just on a cross-country flight, because there's not a lot of work that goes into it when you're going cross-country, but if you have an airplane without autopilot, you have to always make these little adjustments, and there's just constant change, so that would definitely take some of the workload off.
My autopilot's going to be you.
So you've been flying for almost 20...
no, I think since
12
around
years.
2009, roughly 2010-ish. Going on 15 years.
15 years. What do you think the biggest hurdle is for people thinking about getting into flying and they just never do it, or what's the hurdle that keeps people from doing it?
I think probably the first hurdle is getting yourself up off the couch and going and taking that first step, talking to a school, because most people just think that's an unrealistic goal. There's no way I could be a pilot. But they don't realize there is a path that just about anybody can take to become a pilot. So you just have to have take that first step of faith to go and pay $100, take a discovery ride, give it a try, and then you can figure out exactly how to pull the pieces together. That's the money and the time. But I mean, if you could take one lesson a week, you could do it.
Yeah, and what I tell people is you can take as long as you want. Like if you want to take 5 years, you could take 5 years. The only thing is you lack in that ability to get repetition in. Right. But I'm just so thankful because you are like, you get things done. Like Leon and I always say, like, what would Derek do? Because it just helps us take action. It's very inspiring. But you called the airports around me, and that kind of got the ball rolling. I remember sitting in an apartment, and you were calling around. You called Bedford and got their prices, and then Bloomington and got their prices. So I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. So went to the airport, and you just sign up for your discovery flight and your first flight, and you talk to instructor. They kind of get your goal and what your objective is to fly. So I just did that, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And it never really hit me until maybe I enjoyed it, but there's just so much going on. As in the beginning, you're not even doing that much, because they're ghosting the controls quite a bit. But after a little bit, like maybe 2 or 3 flights, it like clicked, and I loved it. It was a kind of a challenge, kind of get more of a feeling at that point, like what kind of doors open up for this.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also interesting to think a lot of people wouldn't bat an eyelid at going to a car dealership on the weekend on the spur of the moment and signing off on a $20,000 car loan to get a car or more, car that they're going to have a huge payment on that's going to depreciate, maybe a vehicle they don't even need. But for less than that, they could potentially get a loan and to pay for classes to become a pilot and enjoy a lifestyle that's unique and different from most of the population on Earth throughout all of Earth's history for the rest of their lives.
I mean, you just see the Earth in a different perspective, and you're able to go places in the weekend where you'd not be able to go because driving was too long. And what do you say, you can get anywhere in about half the time with a slow airplane?
Yeah, that's basically the rule of thumb for this airplane is, unless if we're in the desert and the road is straight, then I'm not going to have as great of an advantage over a car. I'm a little faster, but in general, around most places, if it takes 4 hours to get someplace in a car, we can get there probably in a couple hours in this airplane. And this, just in case you're wondering, speed costs more money, so you need to add things to the airplane: retractable landing gear, bigger engines, more horsepower, turbos, different types of propeller system. And it all costs. So a slow is more affordable, at least to start out. And slow is great to learn. A good platform to learn in, a slow plane. Much
more forgiving too.
Yeah.
With those high performance airplanes, they can be a little tricky. Your stall speed goes up. You gotta have more training on those airplanes. But the Cessna, it's like such a comfortable airplane to fly. And another thing, I think another barrier I see is people think it's so dangerous to fly, but the amount of maintenance and rechecking and checking of airplanes every time you fly, this is where things get a little bit more busy here.
Yeah, we have traffic also over Chapman Highway, so I'm just looking for them.
Yeah, you don't realize how many airplanes are around you. So you pull up ForeFlight, and you're like, oh my goodness, all these people around me.
Downtown traffic, Cessna 5777 Romeo 3.5 south of the field, inbound at 2,000 feet. We'll cross midfield, enter left downwind for runway 8, downtown. All right, everything looks clear. That traffic passed. I don't hear anybody at the airport. I don't see anybody.
So as we're coming in here, you kind of have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and constantly be maintaining and thinking about your approach.
And sometimes an airport can be like a little bee's nest here, especially because there's several schools, and you have sometimes the pattern full of students taking off and landing, doing touch and goes, yeah. And you've got to try to coordinate to find a spot to slip into so you can land, and that gets stressful.
Yeah.
But we're out early this morning. It's 8:12 right now, so probably a lot of people getting ready to take off. But right now we're getting back before the beehive begins. Hornet's nest. Downtown traffic, Cessna 5777 Romeo. We are passing overhead at 2,000 feet. We'll enter midfield left downwind for runway 8, downtown. All right, everything's clear on the right and on the left. anything on my screen either. Downtown traffic, Cessna 5777 Romeo entering left downwind, runway 8, downtown. All right, next notch of flaps.
A view of Knoxville right here. All the bridges.
Go ahead and turn final. Downtown traffic, Cessna 5777 Romeo turning final for runway 8, be a full stop downtown. All right, last notch of flaps. Because of noise abatement, the people on the right don't want the airplanes coming in over their houses.
Yeah, this is kind of a more skilled approach. You gotta come in and turn at the last minute. All these houses here.
All right, glide slope is good, 60 knots. Go ahead and turn the carb heat off. Lined up. Pull the throttle back.